Well, Sonia Misak was born in Australia to Ukrainian parents. She is now director of the Ukrainian Association of Sydney, and she joins me now. Sonia Misak, thank you so much for joining me.
Good afternoon.
Obviously, quite a distressing time for Australia's Ukrainian community. Scott Morrison said before he expects potentially within 24 hours a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Is this what you fear as well?
Well, it's certainly correct to say that for the 38,000 Ukrainian Australians, including Australians of Ukrainian descent, this is a time where anxiety has turned to anguish. However, I would have to say that despite being anxious and concerned, we are not surprised because in actual fact, this war begun by Russia started 8 years ago. In 2014, when Russia annexed Crimea and then invaded 2 regions within eastern Ukraine. So it would be more correct to say that the entry of Russian troops within the last 24 hours is a further invasion of Ukraine rather than the first invasion of Ukraine.
And do you have any hope the sanctions might work?
I personally still feel that the sanctions can work, partly because the sanctions are working together with other forms of assistance. I think, for example, if we look at what our Prime Minister Morrison announced today, it is positive that Australia will be providing a coordinated response with countries such as the United States and Canada and Britain. At this point, I see the sanctions that Australia has named as rather limited at this stage. But on the other hand, I understand that there is the possibility for further sanctions to be in place. And I think that it's important to understand the effect of sanctions on the elite class of people we call oligarchs, Russian oligarchs. Russia is actually ruled by an elite group of people who are extremely wealthy, and they enjoy a very luxurious lifestyle outside of Russia. They have bank accounts, they have properties, they travel frequently, their children are in universities and schools all around the world. Now, if that elite ruling class of Russian oligarchs are targeted, and if their lifestyle is destroyed, then I think there is a real chance that they will influence Putin to withdraw and to even reverse what has happened so far.
And what do you think is behind the Russian government and Vladimir Putin's determination here to take Ukraine back?
Well, that's actually, there's a simple answer to that, but it has 2 parts. There's actually quite a backstory to what's been going on. It's easy in a way, because this seems to have been in the news in the last few weeks, it's easy to feel that this is some sort of new Russian aggression. In actual fact, as I said, the war has been going on for 8 years. And the backstory to this war has 2 parts. The first is that Putin has imperialistic ambitions to take control of Ukrainian territory and re-establish a Russian empire. Now, that kind of ambition actually dates back over centuries, back to the Tsarist regime and then to the Soviet Union. And of course, Putin has actually never accepted the dissolution of the Soviet Union. The second part of the backstory is that Russia does not accept Ukraine as an independent nation. And what I mean by that is that Russia simply does not accept that Ukrainian people are a separate people with their own culture and identity and language. And it's that ideology that lies at the base of Putin's actions. And in fact, we see both of those aspects, his disbelief that Ukraine actually exists as a separate nation and his desire to re-establish a Russian empire. We see both of those in his recent speech in which he addressed the Russian people on television. And he effectively said exactly what I've just said to you.
Would Ukraine's military last long without help in a war against the Russian forces?
It's It's in a much better state than it was in 2014 when the war began, when Russia first annexed Crimea and then entered and began military incursions in eastern Ukraine in those two provinces. So it's in a much better state. However, it is outnumbered. It is outnumbered. So in terms of weapons, in terms of soldiers. So definitely Ukraine does need military assistance. However, I should stress that Ukraine has not actually asked any countries to provide troops. Ukraine has been quite clear, the Ukrainian president has been quite clear in saying that Ukraine has an army and Ukrainians will defend themselves. However, military assistance needs to come in other forms, such as training, such as equipment, weapons, offensive weapons and defensive weapons. So yes, definitely Ukraine is in need of help.
And finally, what are you hearing from friends and family in Ukraine?
Well, I personally have family in the northeast of Ukraine, in a city called Chernihiv. It's very close to the border with Belarus. And that is actually one of the areas where the build-up of troops has been very intense. And so I've been in touch with them constantly over this last few weeks. And my cousin's son volunteered to join the army in 2014 when the war first broke out. He only returned to civilian life when he himself was severely wounded. And he actually established a centre in Chernihiv for rehabilitation centre for returned soldiers. But he now is telling me that he is prepared to fight again. He has organised for his wife and young children to evacuate in the event that Russian troops enter the city of Chernihiv. But he has said that he is prepared to fight again. He's prepared to lose his life in defence of his city.